Did Pieter Omtzigt of the NSA walk away from his own responsibility? That's what we are going to talk about today. I'm actually not sure if this is the right time to make a vlog, since it is unclear what actually is happening in The Hague. With The Hague, we Dutch people refer to the parliament where they are seated, and is also the place where the investigative talks are taking place between the four parties, or not. Hi, my name is Phil and I live in the Netherlands and I'm confused. Apparently, I am not the only one. I'm trying to keep you informed about what is happening at the political level after the elections of November, which is a pretty difficult task when you don't know what on earth is happening. This again will be a somewhat quick and dirty vlog, meaning I'm going to throw some topics at you, but we'll skip most of the background for now, except for this, because this is what you really need to know to understand what I'm telling you. In the Netherlands, after the elections, four parties are having investigative talks with each other. And that is to find out whether they are able to work together in a new coalition. One of the parties has now declared that they no longer want to be part of the coalition. The three other parties are surprised and don't understand what is happening, nor does the informateur who is facilitating these talks. More so, parties got informed by the press, and the informateur got a, in his words, confusing app. We already knew that it was going to be hard to form a coalition between these parties, but it is also the only real option. But these parties do have quite different opinions on a lot of topics, including the topic of asylum seekers. This should have been the easiest topic, although it was already clear that the four parties, when talking about immigration, meant different things. As I said, I am actually wondering whether this is the right time to make a vlog, or that I better wait for some decent information, since a lot has happened, and at the same time, it just didn't. So let's have a closer look at it and you'll be the judge. First, it became clear this week that the parties were having talks together on a secret location without the informateur. The only thing that journalists could say about it is that it is because of the tensions which have been accumulating in the last 2 weeks over the topic of finances. Later we found out that the location happened to be the Department of Justice, and obviously this info has been leaked. Who did that? In the last few weeks, finances have been the topic. It became clear, not to anyone's surprise, that there were big differences between the opinions of the parties. Where two parties would like to spend, other parties would like to keep the Dutch finances in order, which means that cutting costs is inevitable. In the last few years, in the last cabinet, we had crisis after crisis, and it means that the last cabinet has spent more money than they actually should have spent. Think of COVID, the energy prices, the war in Ukraine. During these talks on finances, the radio silence have been broken several times, and the parties sometimes even made nasty remarks about one another. It was first and mostly broken by the PVV through tweets. That reminds me of someone. And this is what Isilgus, leader of the VVD, had to say about it during the VVD Congress, which took place not last Saturday, but the Saturday before that. And here's the clip.
Maar als er zoveel op ons afkomt en zoveel gaande is, dan snap ik ook wel dat we soms de neiging hebben om heel hard tegen die problemen te roepen dat ze er niet hadden moeten zijn. En bij alles wat tegen zit even de telefoon te pakken en een boos bericht de wereld in te sturen. Dat doe ik ook wel eens. Nou oké, deed ik ook wel eens. Nu mag ik het iets minder doen. Maar... En het lucht vast wel op, maar het lost niets op. En ik geef toe, als je dat heel vakkundig doet, kan je er zelfs de verkiezingen mee winnen.
Well, I wonder, and I have no clue, who that person might be. It was visible that the initial responsibility, which was felt by all parties, especially with the NSA, who has said that they do feel the responsibility to make sure the Netherlands are governed, that this initial feel of responsibility was making space for worries. According to the parties, it became nerve-wracking, and it was absolutely not clear whether they would manage to form a coalition. It is the NSC, the Party of Responsibility, who supposedly has left the talks. Supposedly, because according to the informateur, that is not the case, although he did use the word breakup himself by accident. Pieter Omtzigt, though, the leader of the NSC, is not a man to make light decisions. A lot of people, voters, were already disappointed in the fact he was willing to take part in the investigative talks. And clearly, from the start, this was indeed hard for the NSA. The NSA had a lot of doubts about the PVV, who in the 17 years his party exists, was mostly about the Islam and asylum seekers. They were often in attack mode and could be rude, not to mention that their proposals were discriminatory, inflaming and not abiding the Constitution. I found an old clip somewhere from the time before the investigative talks. And here you can see how uncertain Pieter Omtzigt is about talking with the PVV. Here's the clip.
Ik wil op dit moment die onderhandelingen niet openen. Er zitten nog belemmeringen in de sfeer van die rechtsstatelijkheid. Dat betekent dat de PVV duidelijk zou moeten maken wat zij bedoelen met ijskasten.
Ja, maar daar is een soort schriftelijke verklaring van de PVV daarover?
Nou, het is aan de PVV om dat te doen, niet aan mij.
Hij wil voorlopig niet met de PVV aan tafel. Hij zegt eerst moet maar eens duidelijk worden wat de PVV bedoelt met dingen in de ijskast zetten. Omtzigt wil eigenlijk van Wilders precies weten wat hij nou eigenlijk meent van zijn eerder gedane uitspraken en verkiezingsprogramma's en wat niet. Dus dat moet eerst helder worden. Vervolgens vindt hij dat er een informateur moet komen die, zoals hij dat dan noemt, een beetje op zijn Sigrid Kaas langs de lijnen van de inhoud moet gaan inventariseren wat 's lands problemen zijn. En daar moet eigenlijk alle politieke partijen bij betrokken worden.
Geert Wilders heeft wel gezegd van ja, laten we nou inderdaad met open vizier dat gesprek aangaan. Kijken van nou, wat is er mogelijk en met inachtneming van die rechtsstaat. Kennelijk is het niet genoeg.
Nee, hij zal het op papier moeten zetten, zo lijkt het een beetje. Hè? Dat Omtzigt die wil dat hij vooraf gaat verklaren wat hij meent van zijn eerder gedane uitspraken en zijn verkiezingsprogramma's. Hij moet duidelijkheid daarover geven, hopen ze. En daarmee wordt hij eigenlijk al gevraagd om ook een aantal dingen die hij wellicht als onderhandelingswisselgeld zou meenemen aan een onderhandelingstafel al vooraf op te geven.
Well, it didn't really happen as the commentator has been saying after the report of the informateur. They invented those investigative talks where they would also talk about the Constitution. For what we do know is that the NSA has made clear that these round of talks are finished, as far as they are concerned. They also announced that they would not take part in the coalition itself, but that they still felt the responsibility to make sure the Netherlands would be governed. So, Pieter Omtzigt stated that on certain topics he would be willing to support a minority coalition, which could also be, and that is new but not surprising, another group of parties. The structure in which the coalition was going to be formed was already part of the investigative talks, and this proposed structure by Pieter Omtzigt fits in well. For months, all sorts of constructions have been passing by. And to be honest, this structure of supporting has been used before, only once, and that didn't work out that well. In my special, which I hope to release this weekend, or maybe the beginning of next week, I will get deeper into that. It might be important to tell what the difference is between supporting and being part of the coalition. And that is that the supporting party is not providing ministers and other high officials, which is the cabinet, but do have more freedom on which topics they like to make an agreement, and they can expect something in return. Thus, delivering a majority vote on these specific topics. That means that the only new thing here is that the NSC is making a clear stance, and that they don't feel bounded by these particular parties. Initially, it was the VVD who announced that they were only ready to support a minority coalition, but were not willing to take part in the coalition itself. This, though, was not what their voters had in mind, so the leader needed to backtrack that comment, and the VVD now seems to be stuck within the group of three, who also seem to try to place the blame on the NSC, as we say in Dutch. I'll get back to that. What put all of this in motion were the finances. Not the finances they thought they were talking about, according to Omtzigt, but the real finances. Okay, before it becomes really blurry, let's see what kind of pieces of information we really know. 1. The so-called breakup was a result of financial insight the NSA and the other parties got only on Monday afternoon, after already been talking about it for several weeks. In those documents, it became clear that the financial situation of the Netherlands was even worse than what they had anticipated. We already knew it was going to be bad, and that is not weird, since we had those crises. But apparently the situation is that bad that the NSA doesn't see any opportunity to make their program work. They are the party of livelihood security and of regaining the trust of the population in the government. But when there is no money, we can only talk about pipe dreams, words of the NSA. Second, the NSA also feels that the PVV and the BBB have unrealistic plans, making the financial problems of the Netherlands only larger. He feels he can't promise that all those nice plans they are now making could ever come to fruition, and that would go against any trust he would like to build between the government and the population. Third, the NSA, yes, I said it right, the NSA accuses the informateur of keeping financial information from them, while finances were what they were talking about for weeks. What happened is that they have been sending a request to all departments for them to assess their own financial situation and to send a letter about it to the informateur. The informateur has received those letters, and that was last week. Pieter Omtzigt feels that he could have given information earlier, but in the mind of the informateur, this is a bit silly. He got them last week and revealed them at the beginning of this week. According to Omtzigt, though, this was only after asking for it. It might be that the informateur was vigilant in giving the information up, since part of the information is classified. Next, what the NSC says in a letter is that they are finished with the investigative talks and await the report of the informateur, which is actually not new. They have been saying that, I think, since last week. It doesn't say that they would leave the talks altogether. They first just want to see what the informateur comes up with before they make up their mind. In spite of that, the informateur has invited the four parties tonight to talk this over and get more clarity. Omtzigt has stated he will not attend. I am really not sure what is going on, because technically, besides the new financial information and the clear stance that the NSC is taking in on how they see their own role in a new cabinet, aka supporting a minority cabinet, there's actually nothing new. And we already knew that the NSA would like another structure altogether. In this case, they prefer a business cabinet, a cabinet with great distance to the parliament. We also knew that they didn't feel like stepping into a minority coalition with the PVV and BBB, supported by the VVD. As I already said, the VVD already announced they don't want to become part of a coalition, but were willing to support a right-wing coalition. They announced that within 48 hours after the elections, thinking that if they wouldn't do so, the NSA would claim that role in the coming week. At least, that is the suspicion. And that tells you something about how those two parties both feel about working together with the PVV. That is denied by the VVD. They say, we don't want to sit in a coalition any coalition because we feel that we need to lick our wounds before we can move on. Fair enough, but it's not believed by everyone. But whatever it is, there's nothing new here, technically, because the structure Pieter Omtzigt has been referring to fits well in the plans. But at the same time, something did happen, and I suspect that it is on the level of trust, something Pieter Omtzigt holds high, thus his agitation. The way Pieter Omtzigt has been informing the others haven't made the relationship with them any better, especially not with the informateur. The parties know through the press, and the informateur got an app. Why? Because you would say these are things that need to be worked out on the table, or at least announced there first before you continue to go to the press and talk to them. Or instead of sending an app, facing the informateur. So what happened? It all sounds like a mess, and well, that might be the exact right word for it. Trust between the different parties is hardly existing. From the beginning, even before these talks, it was already clear that the NSA had great difficulty with the way the PVV has been doing politics in the last 17 years, and that is the same amount as the party exists. It is therefore that journalists expect that this financial situation was a way for the NSA to get out of these negotiations. Since the state of finances of the Netherlands is actually hardly a good argument. Somebody will need to pick up the pieces, and to push that towards another party seems not being an attitude which gains trust from voters. But what has happened might also have been the last drop of water filling Pieter Omtzigt's bucket, making it overflow. We don't know. Well, all in all, we simply will need to wait for the report to come out, which has been promised by the informateur this Friday or Monday. And before that, it will be a guessing game about what this all means. Is this coalition to become already going to fall, or will there be a coalition with support of the NSA? And that last part is within the goal of the investigative talks. But you tell me, and I'm getting really curious, what will be in Plasterk's report? I hope it comes out on a Friday, but I suspect with everything happening last week it will be a Monday. Or he need to feel the urge to do it really quickly. But yeah, you also need to make sure that you do it thoroughly. Well, when there are new changes at the front, I will be back. I actually hope it will be pretty soon, because it's almost exciting, this, but in the wrong way, I would say. Okay, I hope you liked this, maybe learned something. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Works always. Good for the algorithm, which is not working very hard for me. I don't care actually. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. And I hope to see you again. Goodbye.